Hello, this is Mark from My Keys to Music. Thanks for joining me on this video. Today we're talking about another installment of the Nord Stage 3 Discovery series. This time we take a look at a song called Lucky Man from ELP, also known as Emerson, Lake and Palmer. This song is going to really dissect the keyboard solo made famous by Keith Emerson, who played it in one take. The song was actually written by Greg Lake when he was 12. So this is really a neat combination of genius.
Ooh, what a lucky man he was. Ooh, what a lucky man he was.
So let's talk specifically about the Lucky Man solo at the end of the song. I have to thank Mark Stallings for supplying yet another masterful program here for our Nord Stage 3. This particular sound is emulated on the Nord Stage 3 using the Synth engine exclusively, also known as the Synthesizer engine. And you will be able to see that firsthand here in just a minute. In addition, I've taken the liberty to grab a MIDI file of the Lucky Man solo, and I've inserted that into Logic Pro X on my Macintosh computer so that we can dissect it even more. And then we'll have Logic Pro X actually do the performance on the Nord Stage 3. So for today's lesson, I'd like to work with a MIDI file, which gives us some distinct advantages over some other techniques. For example, I can take that MIDI file and isolate the keyboard track or the keyboard solo by soloing it. But with the MIDI file, I have the full accompaniment of the band, the drums, the background, the bass. All of that is included with the MIDI file. So if I want to have accompaniment and play along with it, in the case of rehearsing or soloing myself, that is a big advantage. I can also change the tempo of a MIDI file. I can also reassign the MIDI file to use a MIDI signal and send that out to the Nord Stage 3, thereby having it perform the solo for me. So there's some neat advantages of a MIDI file. So let's take a look at that and let's go do that right now. So open up a browser and go to bitmidi.com, which is one place you can get a lot of different MIDI files. Once you're on this website, you can just simply do a search for Lucky Man. And you can see here what the first item is Emerson, Lake and Palmer, luckyman.mid. So click on that. And there's a couple things you need to learn about here. First, you can just play it if you want to rehearse it and listen. And you can hear strumming guitar and so forth. Now, of course, it's a MIDI file at the end of the day, so it's only going to use general MIDI instruments to prepare the sound for you. It's going to be nothing like the original in terms of sonically it won't be. And then you're really only, the quality of this MIDI file is only as good as the author. So MIDI files are sort of a crapshoot in terms of you get what you get. But generally they're free, and they're really flexible and powerful once you get them into your favorite DAW or digital audio workstation. So that's what we're going to do right now. So I'm going to download this MIDI file using this link here. This will bring it to my computer. So I'll hide the website for now. I don't need that. And let's open up Logic Pro X, which is a paid DAW for the Macintosh. You can also use GarageBand if you want to open up a MIDI file. That'll work just as well. The reason I'm using Logic over GarageBand is because Logic gives me the ability to send MIDI signal out to, let's say, a Nord Stage 3 in this case. So that's pretty powerful, and that's what we need to do today. So once I open up Logic Pro X, I can simply go to File, Open, and you can immediately target that MIDI file that you just downloaded. So let me do that. I'll just do Open, go to Downloads, open up the Emerson, Lake and Palmer Lucky Man file, and look at this. We have a complete track list with all the things that you would normally see in a MIDI file. This one is particularly well done. Let's just play a few bars of this. So it's using the flute for the melody line or for the vocal part. And there's really no reverb on that. So the first thing I like to do, just so I can bear it, is put a little audio reverb on here. So I'll just do some silver verb in stereo and add a little bit of output for the wet setting, and just listen to the difference. Now, at the end of the day, it's still MIDI, but it isn't too bad. All right, now that we've got our basics set up, let's target the solo part. The solo part in this MIDI file starts around measure 65, and I'll play just a little bit of it so you can get a taste of what it's like hearing that solo through a software instrument, which happens to be on track 3, called Reverse Engineering. So the solo part you heard is actually coming from a software instrument, and the goal is to get that triggered MIDI to be sending to the Nord Stage 3 as the receiver of that, so that I don't have to perform it, and we can just appreciate the sound through a MIDI file, and then you can do the same on your end if you want to analyze it. Having the MIDI file has so many advantages. As I mentioned earlier in the video, you can change the tempo, you can isolate just the solo part, you can mute the solo part and have just the accompaniment if you want to play along, with your own keyboard. So let's take a quick second and I'll show you some of the things I had to do to clean this MIDI file up when it came time to push over to the Nord Stage 3. All right, so the first thing I did is click on the step editor, and I expanded that window here and brought these down so that I could see essentially everything on a single screen. And if you take a close look at this, you'll see the notes represented here, D1 through D0, and they're sort of randomly placed. This is the step editor portion of Logic Pro X. And what I ended up doing is I took out all the program changes, as well as any bank changes. I took out the pan commands on this track. So you can see here all of this is set to pan for whatever reason at this particular area. So you can click on that and just delete with the delete key on your keyboard. So I took all the panning out, and then I took out any kind of program change so that it wouldn't change the program on the Nord Stage 3. Okay, so let me show you the completed file after all the changes. And I've got it wired up to send MIDI signal out to my Nord Stage 3. And you'll see the original Reverse Engineering track number 3, which is the Lucky Man solo part. I'm going to mute that now, so that's muted. Then over here, I have something called the Nord Solo. Let me just rearrange this track so that it's right under the original. Okay, so this track here represents the Nord Stage 3. And actually all it's doing, it's not playing a software instrument, it's taking this MIDI signal, sending it to the Nord Stage 3. Then I'm sending the audio from the Nord Stage 3 back through to this video so you can hear it. So what you're about to hear is the accompaniment in MIDI generated by the software instruments in Logic Pro X. The solo, the keyboard solo part, the audio for that will be exclusively from the Nord Stage 3. And once we do that, then we'll take a close look at that sound on the Nord Stage 3 directly. But I want you to hear it first so we can appreciate it in all its glory. So I'll go somewhere around measure 63, and we will begin. Nord Stage 3 right here. Wow, that is some good stuff right there. Thanks to Mark Stallings for that brilliant program. Thanks to the Nord Stage 3 for its ability to emulate the Moog synthesizers of days gone by. Okay, there's one other thing I want to bring to your attention. As we went through the notation of that, this is Logic Pro X's interpretation of that notation. It is really not that accurate, or I should say it's accurate, but it's not well written in terms of where the notes fall within the measure and how they're depicted. To get a better idea of a better notation, something you can actually read from that will make a lot more sense, you may want to check out keyboardmag.com, and I'll put the description below, and take a look at this notation. It's night and day in terms of your ability to actually see it, read it, and be able to depict from it. So this is proper notation. I'd say this is probably the best I've seen in the few that I've looked at. So have a look at that if you really want to learn the song, and if you can read sheet music, this will really guide you. It also has the chords above as well. You can play along. Okay, let's take a look at the sound on the Nord Stage 3 synthesizer, and we'll see what's under the hood and how this sound comes to be. I have here before me the Nord Stage 3. We're going to be taking full advantage of the Nord Stage 3 synthesizer engine. And the name of the program is called Lucky Man Moog. And I often feel like a lucky man actually playing the Nord Stage 3 and working with the synth and working on these discovery videos for you guys. Because it really is fun to explore and try to emulate the old music, because that's where it gets exciting. That's where the rubber meets the road. It's great to learn all these knobs and gadgets and fool around with the sounds, but when you actually can emulate something that brings home a memory or something special to you in your life, or as a musician, just to sort of live a small part of your day in the minds of those geniuses that created this music, that brings, I think that's the human element that we're all looking for. So this is no exception. This is a great tune, a great solo. The guy did it in one take. He wasn't even happy with it after he did it. He didn't like it at all. But now here comes Mark Stallings. Now Mark Stallings is essentially a keyboard programmer. He's a sound engineer, a musician, and got quite a lot of skill. He's quite the wizard when it comes to this stuff, and I really want to thank him for the contributions he's made to this channel up through now, especially on the discovery videos where he's able to program this. I tell you what, it saves me a ton of time from having to program all this. And he can be hired, by the way. He's got an email address in the description of this video. Feel free to reach out to him if you need help programming something on your Nord in terms of sounds or anything that he can do as within his profession he can be hired to do, and he'd be happy to help. All right, so let's take a look. This program is called Lucky Man Moog, and I've got it ready to go. Let's just listen to this real quickly, and then what I thought we might do is jump in and make a brand new sound and compare step by step the differences between the two so that you can see what makes this sound this sound. First, we start with that amazing low D. And as I let go, you'll hear the resonance and the filter cut down, giving you that sort of that laser effect. That's all built into this sound. Then as I move up to the key, or I play a key higher, you're going to hear the portamento, which is also known as glide here on the Nord Stage 3. Listen to this. And you can adjust that with that knob here. It adjusts the speed. So when you do that, when you hit those two Ds, you get that amazing effect. You'll also notice it's in mono mode, which means you can't play but only one note at a time. In other words, you only hear one sound at a time. And that was indicative of the keyboards back then. When they first came out with the synthesizer, polyphony was really unheard of. You could only play one key at a time, hearing one sound at a time. Nowadays, polyphony is has expanded to a great deal, and when a synthesizer is sold, you'll see polyphony as one of the key ingredients as to what you look for. Oh, well, it's got 4-note polyphony, or 8-note polyphony, or 16-note polyphony, or more. On the Nord Stage 3 here, we have 34 notes of polyphony, so it's quite broad and expansive when you think about that. All right, so let's take a look at this. So Lucky Man Moog, that's the original sound. Right next to it, I've pre-programmed something called New Lucky, which is completely blank. You just hear a sine wave. So it's got nothing. So what I thought we'd do is build it up one by one and continue to save it, and you'll learn that way. And that's, I think, the easiest way to go through this. Now, it'll take a little longer, but it'll be well worth it, because then you can appreciate everything that's going on here. So the first thing I want to talk about is what oscillators are we using here, and what panels are we using. So if you take a look at Lucky Man Moog, we have both A and B operating at the same time. So let's take one at a time. Let's take panel A first. So I click both of these and just push panel A. And on panel A, that's where we'll focus in for the next few minutes. I've got the classic square, and along with the detuned with 0 semitones. So let's go set that up. We'll do a classic square and a detune oscillator setup for my other sound here, New Lucky. So classic square. And then I'll hold the shift button and select detune with 0 semi. All right, let's listen to that. Oh, now we can see the properties are coming together. We've got the basics. All right, now let's save that. And I'll go back to this. Okay, now let's take a look at the oscillator control knob and see how much fine tuning is happening within that oscillator setup. So I'll push monitor, and this will tell us it's a 0.19. So we'll do that over here, 0.19. Perfect. Save that and listen. Wow, there's that detuned square oscillator. The original had 3 oscillators, all slightly detuned, and they were kind of claiming that that's all there is to it. Take 3 square oscillators, detune them a little. So that's the first one. Next, let's check our LFO and filter settings. All right, so for LFO, and that's going to be 0 here, and let's look at the LFO over here. As far as filter, that's also 0. There is no LFO happening there. So let's go and make sure we'll do that on our New Lucky. So 0 right here in the middle, no LFO. Effect there, and then 0 there. Save. Let's go back, and let's check the filter. All right, let's check the frequency cutoff. It's 139, and let's check if there's any mod envelope happening. Yes, there's a 10 mod envelope happening. So 139 and 10. So this is 10. That's all the way to the right. So that means the modulation envelope is going to be used in this particular sound. And the frequency is 139. So let's put that to 139. Okay, and save. Go back. Now that we know the modulation is going to be used, the mod envelope is going to be used, we have to now focus on the 3 settings for that. So we'll look at each one of these. The attack is 61. The mod decay is 25 seconds. And the release is 11. So 61, 25, and 11 seconds. So that determines the envelope of the frequency cutoff. Save that. Let's go take a look at the amp envelope. So I'll look at the attack. We have 0.5 milliseconds, full sustain, and 12 milliseconds. 0.5, full sustain, and 12. Okay, save that and listen. Okay, let's take a look at the resonance. That 7.6 is the filter resonance. 7.6. There we go. There's that sound. Once you add the resonance to it, you can hear the filter frequency cutoff go through over time using the mod envelope. Okay, let's take a look at what else is happening here. We have, for filtering, we have the LPM, that's the low pass Moog filter. We have drive set to 1. Vibrato is off, arpeggiator is off. So let's go set that up. That's the LPM filter, and this will make a big difference when you hear it through that filter. And the drive is 1, so I'll hold the shift, push drive, and save, and listen. Now you really hear that laser effect because we've changed the filter to the LPM, which is more indicative of a Moog filter. It makes sense because we're trying to emulate a Moog synthesizer. Okay, let's look at some of the final things here. We have mono on, and we have a glide of 1.2 and unison at 3. So we'll put the mono on, a glide of 1.2. This is the portamento. It's that glide you hear between the notes, and the unison of 3. Save that and listen. Now we're really hearing the sound All right, let's take a look at what else is happening. Let's take a look at the effects. Okay, so for effects, we have effect 2 is on with a chorus. All right, what do we have for rate? We have a 4.0, and for amount, we have a 3.1. So I'll set my synth to chorus 2, rate 4.0, and 3.1 for the amount, and save. Now we have a chorus effect going on there, which widens the sound a little bit and makes it a little thicker. We also have a digital delay happening with the original sound. So we've got ping pong. Filter is the LP filter in analog mode. We'll look at the tempo is 323. Feedback 0. Mix 1. Okay, so let's set that up. Synth. LP filter, analog mode, shift analog. 323 is the tempo. 0 feedback, and a 1.0 mix. Save. And then for reverb, we're using Hall 1 with a reverb amount of 4.1 and bright setting. Okay, that takes care of panel A. Let's take a look at panel B. Now, panel B is using a classic E square with a detuned E square right next to it, very similar to the traditional square that we had earlier. So E square, detuned to 0 semitones, and let's see what the oscillator control is before we even get there. It's a 0.32, so let's set that up. So E square for panel B. So I'm on New Lucky, panel B is blank right now, and change it to E square. Then hold the shift button and invoke the second detune here with the E square, 0 semitones, and put this oscillator control to 0.19. Like so. Save. Go back to New Lucky. I'm going to save it so that the default panel is B, and I won't have to keep going back and forth, so I'll quickly save the original Lucky sound just so that the panel B is the default. All right, so we've got the oscillator set up. While we're in this area, let's just change it up a little bit. Let's put the mono on and unison up to 3, and let's check the glide settings. 1.2 glide for panel B. All right, so mono, unison 3, and glide 1.3. Save. All right. Let's listen to panel B so far. Next, let's look at the LFO settings. 0 LFO over here for the LFO mod envelope, and then the LFO here is also 0. So just like on the last one, they're both set to 0. 0 and 0, save. Next, let's see if the mod envelope is doing anything here. This is also a 10. So that's a 10. That means that the mod envelope is going to be invoked, and we'll see what this is all about. 61, 25, and 11. 61, 25 seconds, and 11 seconds. And this was all the way to 10. Save. Amp envelope next. For attack, we have 0.5, full sustain, and 12. 0.5, full sustain, and 12. Save. Listen. Again, this is just the second oscillator. All right, let's look at the filter next. Filter frequency cutoff is 147. That's slightly different than the other one. We're also using the LPM Moog filter. This time, no drive and no KB track. So really, the only thing we have to do with filtering is the filter frequency cutoff. And while we're at it, let's take a look at the resonance. It's 7.6. 147. 7.6. Save. Listen. All right, got that taken care of. Okay, for effects on panel B for Lucky Man, we have an effect 2, a delay, and an amp all happening here. And incidentally, we had an amp on panel A that we'll get to here at the end of this a little bit. Okay, so effect 2, we have the chorus 2 with a rate of 4.0 and an amount of 3.1. Okay, Now let's look at the delay. Okay, so ping pong, low pass filter, analog mode. Tempo is 323, 0, and 1. All right, and now the amp EQ. This is panel B EQ. We'll put the treble to 0. We'll put the mid to 6. The frequency range, 5.8. The drive at 1.5. And the bass at 15. And save. Now while we're at it, I'll go ahead and do panel A and check that out for the EQ. Treble is 0. Frequency is 4.3. The mid is 9.8. The drive is 0. The bass is 14.5. Let's see if there's any reverb on panel B. There is 4.1, the reverb with Hall 2, and bright, by the way. The last thing you need to do is push both panel A and B and enjoy. What's amazing to me is that we can take sounds from 30 or 40 years ago, emulate them today on a modern keyboard, and relive them and give them new life and bring them to life to a younger generation. And for the older generation, for people like me and people that are older than me, let's face it, it's living down memory lane. I remember first hearing this song. I never thought in my wildest dreams that in my 50s I would be looking at this song with a very close inspection magnifying glass, understanding square waves, reproducing the song, seeing the transcripted solo done here on sheet music. When I was a kid, I just enjoyed the song, and we were right on to the next song, or right on to the next adventure. But here, as I get older in years and come to relive some of those memories of the past, it's making new memories and appreciating things from a different perspective, a wiser perspective, an older perspective. Thank you for joining me on this video, and we will catch you on the next one.